star prosecution witness in Donald Trump's criminal trial in New York has taken the stand, directly implicating his former boss in a hush money scheme to bury negative stories ahead of the 2016 US presidential election.
What do you have to say to Donald Trump? You going to tell the truth today in court?
Michael-Cohen was the former president's personal lawyer and fixer and once said he'd take a bullet for Donald Trump. Now he's turned foe. In court, Mr Cohen told jurors Mr Trump personally signed off on a $200,000 payment made to porn star Stormy-Daniels to stay quiet about a sexual encounter she alleged she had with him a decade earlier, something Mr Trump denies. The payment is at the centre of the historic first criminal trial of a former president. Prosecutors allege Mr Trump paid his loyal staffer back after the election and hid the reimbursement by recording it falsely as a legal retainer fee in his real estate company's records. Mr Trump has pleaded not guilty to 34 counts of fraud. He says the case is politically motivated to damage his political chances in this year's presidential election.
This trial is rigged. It's dishonest, it's a disgrace to New York, it's a disgrace to the country. I should be out campaigning now instead of sitting in a very cold courthouse all day long. This is a Biden prosecution. It's election interference at a level that nobody in this country has ever seen before. This is for third world countries, not for the USA.
Michael-Cohen has spent time in jail. In 2018, he pleaded guilty to federal charges that he violated campaign finance law, in part through the payment made to Stormy-Daniels. Later that year, he also entered a guilty plea for lying to Congress in 2017, but says he did so to protect Donald Trump. Michael-Cohen has been vocal against his former boss on social media. In one recent post, he wore a shirt with an image depicting Donald Trump behind bars.
And as I say in the last line of my book, Trumpism is fascism, and we must eradicate it from our body politic.
Michael-Cohen will face another round of questioning by the prosecution when the trial resumes, before being cross-examined by defence lawyers who are expected to focus on the credibility of the witness. While Donald Trump is gagged from commenting on witnesses, his political allies are rallying behind him and speaking out about the former fixer's testimony.
This guy is a convicted felon who admitted in his testimony that he secretly recorded his former employer, that he only did it once, allegedly, and that this was supposed to help Donald Trump. Does any reasonable, sensible person believe anything that Michael-Cohen says?
My background is as a prosecutor. And what I saw in that courtroom today is a travesty. Politics has no place in a court of law. Politics should be out on the campaign trail.
Journalist Anna Bauer says Michael-Cohen's testimony is crucial to the case.
Cohen took them a long way today. So far, they needed to show two things with Cohen's testimony. One is that Trump directed the hush money payment to Stormy-Daniels in the lead up to the 2016 election. And the other thing that they needed from Cohen is that Trump approved or directed the reimbursement payments that were allegedly falsified as legal expenses, as opposed to a reimbursement to Cohen for the Stormy-Daniels payment. And that is precisely what prosecutors elicited from Michael-Cohen today, who is, of course, the former lawyer and, quote, fixer for Donald Trump. They had him testify both that Trump approved and directed the payment to Stormy-Daniels in the lead up to the 2016 election, and then also that after the election, when there were discussions about reimbursing Cohen, that Trump was involved directly in a meeting with Trump Organization Chief Financial Officer Alan Weisselberg, in which they came up with a detailed reimbursement plan to Cohen, which were then going to be recorded as legal expenses as opposed to a reimbursement. That is exactly what is at the heart of this case for falsification of business records. However, what the prosecution has not quite gotten to yet, and we may hear about this tomorrow when Michael-Cohen's testimony resumes, is this question of whether there was an intent with these allegedly falsified business records to cover up or commit some other crime. The prosecution has a number of theories about that. It could be a campaign finance crime. It could be a tax crime. It could be an election crime under New York state law. But we haven't yet heard a whole lot other than circumstantial evidence of what Donald Trump's intent was in terms of causing these falsified entries in the Trump organization's internal books. So we will see what Cohen testifies to when direct examination resumes tomorrow. And then also, of course, the defense attorneys will have a chance to cross-examine him later on as the week goes on.
Yeah, and Anna, Cohen is the most important witness for the prosecution. He is a complicated character, though.
He is a very complicated character, and he's someone who is well known, at least in the U.S., as someone who's quite a bombastic character. In the time since he kind of parted ways with Trump, he has become someone who hosts a podcast. He makes TV appearances. He has no love lost with Donald Trump. He has really kind of made a name for himself as someone who does not like Donald Trump. He's been very clear about that. And even just last week, he was going on his social media channels wearing a T-shirt in which he displayed a photo of Trump behind bars in an orange jumpsuit. And that was a public statement that the judge on Friday, at the request of defense counsel, initiated an order to the prosecution to basically tell Michael-Cohen to knock it off with some of his public statements that were, in defense counsel's view, a little bit inflammatory for a witness who is about to be the alleged star witness in this trial. And so it's someone who we expected might be a little bit bombastic, have a little bit of that bravado on the stand. But what we saw instead today was a very different Michael-Cohen from his public persona. He was very calm and collected. He spoke in a very, slow and clear and concise manner. And he really came across as quite credible, I will say, in my view. And so, again, to be seen what happens on cross-examination from defense counsel, because they have indicated that his credibility is at the heart of their defense case. They will try to attack him as someone who, in their view, is a liar and is a convicted criminal. So again, it remains to be seen how he will perform on cross-examination, but so far so good for Michael-Cohen and how the prosecution is presenting its case through him.
And Anna, will Donald Trump take the stand?
That is the big question on everyone's mind at the moment. Donald Trump has indicated at times that he does want to testify in his own defense, and it is his choice as a criminal defendant to do so. He may have received advice to the contrary from his defense counsel, who usually defense counsel typically recommend that a defendant does not take the stand in their own defense because it is a risky move. However, Donald Trump, when he puts his mind to something, he makes it happen. And so it could be that we see him take the stand. I, however, personally will be very surprised if we see that happen. There's been other cases in which Trump has promised that he would take the stand in his own defense, some of the civil cases that he's been involved in the past year, and that did not end up happening. I think it's very likely that we see the exact same thing happen here, in which Donald Trump is going to say that he might take the stand and then ultimately does not. But again, it's up to him, so we will see.